The morning sun cast long shadows across the Terra Nova Memorial grounds. Thousands of people dressed in black had gathered to say goodbye to Admiral Marcus Kane, one of humanity's greatest heroes. He had died peacefully in his sleep 3 days ago, and today the entire colony world had come together to honor his memory. Commander Lisa Blake stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Her father had been loved by everyone who knew him. She could see governors from 12 different worlds, military officers, ordinary families, and even children who had skipped school to attend. The Admiral's casket sat on a raised platform, draped with the blue and silver flag of the United Earth Colonies. My father believed that humanity's greatest strength was not our weapons or our ships, Lisa said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. He believed it was our ability to care for each other, to remember our fallen, and to build something better for those who come after us. The crowd nodded quietly. Many people wiped tears from their eyes. Admiral Kane had protected the outer colonies for 30 years, fighting pirates and hostile aliens. He had saved countless lives and made it safe for families to live among the stars. High above the planet, hidden behind advanced cloaking technology, 12 Zephyrian warships waited in the darkness of space. Supreme Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human ceremony through long-range scanners. "Look at them," he said to his officers, all gathered in one place like sheep. Their leaders, their governors, their military commanders. This is perfect. The Zephyrians had been watching human expansion for months. They did not like how fast humans were spreading across the galaxy. New colonies appeared every few weeks. Human trade ships were everywhere. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of space for over 1,000 years, and they saw humanity as a threat to their power. "Sir, our intelligence says there are at least 50,000 humans at that gathering," reported his tactical officer, including most of the colonial leadership. Vextar smiled coldly. The Zephyrians had studied human behavior carefully. They knew humans formed strong emotional bonds. They believed that killing so many leaders and civilians at once would break human spirit completely. The survivors would be too scared and sad to continue their expansion. "We will show them what happens when an inferior species tries to compete with the Zephyrian Empire," Vextar declared. "Begin the attack." Down on the planet, Lisa continued her speech. "The Admiral once told me that every human life was precious, that we explore the stars not for conquest but for hope. We carry that hope with us wherever we go." Suddenly, the clear blue sky above them began to shimmer and ripple. Massive shapes began to appear as the cloaking devices deactivated. 12 enormous alien warships materialized directly above the memorial site, their dark hulls blocking out the sun. The crowd looked up in confusion and growing fear. Children began to cry. Some people started to run, but there was nowhere to go. The ships were directly overhead, and the memorial site was in an open valley surrounded by mountains. Lisa grabbed the microphone. "Everyone stay calm," she shouted. "Move toward the emergency shelters in an orderly fashion." But there was no time. The Zephyrian ships opened fire immediately. Bright green energy beams lanced down from the sky, striking the center of the gathering. The first blast vaporized the Admiral's casket and the platform around it. The second beam cut through the crowd like a sword, killing hundreds of people instantly. Screams filled the air as panic took hold. People ran in every direction, but the alien ships fired again and again. Each beam killed dozens more. Lisa watched in horror as Governor Martinez from the Kepler colony was struck down just meters away from her. She could see his wife crying over his burned body. The attack was not random. The Zephyrians were targeting the areas where the most important people were sitting. Military officers, planetary governors, business leaders, scientists, doctors, all the people who made human civilization work, were being systematically murdered. Lisa ran toward a group of children who were trapped near the burning remains of the speaker platform. She grabbed 2 small boys and pushed them toward their mother, then turned back for more. A green beam struck the ground beside her, throwing her to the ground. Her ears were ringing and she could taste blood in her mouth. The hospital director, Dr. Alan North, was trying to help wounded people when another blast hit near his position. Lisa saw him disappear in a flash of green light, along with the injured people he was trying to save. The Zephyrians were not just attacking leaders, they were killing anyone they could see. For 10 more minutes, the massacre continued. The alien ships moved in slow circles above the memorial site, firing at anything that moved. They destroyed the emergency shelters before people could reach them. They targeted the medical stations that had been set up for the ceremony. They even fired on the parking areas where families had left their vehicles. Lisa found herself pressed against a large memorial stone with about 30 other survivors. Among them was Captain Jake Morrison, who had been attending in his dress uniform. His left arm was badly burned, but he was still trying to help others. "We need to get to the communications center," he told Lisa urgently. "Someone has to warn the other colonies." But when they looked toward the small building that housed the planetary communication system, they saw it was already in flames. The Zephyrians had destroyed it in their first wave of attacks. As suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped. The alien ships hung in the sky for a few more moments, scanning the destruction they had caused. Smoke rose from dozens of fires across the memorial site. Bodies lay scattered everywhere. The beautiful ceremony had become a scene from hell. Supreme, Commander Vextar looked down at the burning memorial site with satisfaction. His tactical officer reported that over 8,000 humans had been killed, including most of the colonial leadership. "Excellent," Vextar said. "Now they will understand that the galaxy belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. Begin Phase 2 of the operation." The warships moved away from the memorial site and began attacking the main city. They destroyed the spaceport, the hospitals, the schools, and the power plants. They were not trying to conquer Terra Nova. They were trying to make it uninhabitable. Lisa crawled out from behind the memorial stone as the alien ships moved away. Her dress uniform was torn and bloody. Around her, the few other survivors were beginning to move, calling out for loved ones and trying to help the wounded. She looked at the spot where her father's casket had been. Nothing remained except a crater filled with twisted metal and ash. The man who had dedicated his life to protecting humanity had been dishonored even in death. Captain Morrison struggled to his feet beside her. "Commander Blake," he said quietly, "we need to find a way off this planet. We need to tell Earth what happened here." Lisa nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on the destruction around them. The Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake. They understood humans, but they were wrong. They had attacked during a funeral, violated the most sacred human ritual, murdered innocent children and families who had come only to honor a good man's memory. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The emergency beacon finally activated 12 hours after the attack. Captain Jake Morrison had worked through the night with Lisa Blake and the other survivors to repair a damaged communications array from the wreckage. His injured arm throbbed with pain, but he ignored it as he sent the distress signal across human space. The message was simple and terrible. Terra Nova attacked during Admiral Kane's funeral. 8,000 dead, including colonial leadership. Alien warships destroyed civilian targets. Request immediate assistance. On Earth, President Helen Torres was having breakfast with her family when her security chief burst into the dining room. The look on his face told her everything she needed to know before he even spoke. Something very bad had happened. "Madam President, we have a Priority 1 emergency from Terra Nova," he said, handing her a communication pad. "I think you need to see this immediately." Helen read the message twice, her face growing pale. Then she watched the video footage that Morrison had managed to transmit. Shaky camera work showed the alien ships appearing above the funeral. She saw the first energy beams striking down into the crowd of mourners. She watched people running and screaming as more blasts killed them. The worst part was seeing the children, little boys and girls in their best clothes, brought by their parents to honor a hero, now lying still on the ground. Helen had 2 children of her own, and the sight made her feel sick. "Get me Admiral Cross on secure communication right now," she ordered, "and call an emergency session of the Defense Council. I want every department head in the Situation Room within 1 hour." News of the Terra Nova massacre spread across human space faster than light. On New Boston Colony, factory workers stopped their machines and gathered around news screens. On Mars, university students canceled their classes and sat in shocked silence. On the mining stations near Jupiter, Grown men cried openly as they watched the footage. Admiral Peter Cross had been Marcus Kane's closest friend for over 20 years. He was in his office on Luna Base when the call came in. The old soldier sat quietly as President Torres explained what had happened, but inside his heart was breaking. "Peter, I need you to coordinate our response to this attack," Torres said through the secure video link. "I'm giving you emergency powers to mobilize whatever forces you think we need." Cross looked at the tactical display on his wall. It showed the positions of every human ship in space. Hundreds of vessels scattered across dozens of systems. Most were civilian cargo ships and passenger transports. The actual military fleet was much smaller than people realized. "Madam President, I have to be honest with you," he said carefully. "Our active military force is only about 200 ships. We were never designed to fight a major war. Most of our vessels are explorers and patrol boats." Torres nodded grimly. "Then we will have to build what we need. I'm declaring a state of emergency and authorizing immediate conversion of civilian shipyards to military production. How long before we can mount a serious response?" "Give me 3 months, and I'll give you a fleet that can hunt down whoever did this," Cross promised. Meanwhile, on the Outer Rim patrol ship USS Vengeance, Captain Morrison's distress call was received by Lieutenant Commander Kate Sullivan. She immediately changed course for Terra Nova, pushing her ship's engines to maximum speed. The Vengeance was a small destroyer with only 40 crew members, but they were all angry and determined. "Ma'am, we're getting more reports," her communications officer announced. "The aliens hit 6 more human colonies after Terra Nova. They're systematically attacking our settlements." Sullivan studied the tactical display showing the attack pattern. "These aren't random raids. This is an organized campaign to drive us out of this entire sector. Send a message to Fleet Command. We need every available ship to respond to this threat." Back on Terra Nova, Lisa Blake worked tirelessly to coordinate rescue efforts and care for the wounded. The planet's main hospital had been destroyed, so survivors were being treated in temporary shelters. She had not slept since the attack, running on coffee and determination. Captain Morrison found her sitting alone behind one of the medical tents, staring at a small photo of her father. Her dress uniform was still dirty and torn from the previous day. "Commander, you should get some rest," he said gently. "There are other people who can handle things for a few hours." Lisa shook her head. "I keep thinking about what my father would do in this situation. He always said that leaders have to take care of their people first, especially when times are hard." "Your father would be proud of what you've done here," Morrison told her. "But he would also want you to stay strong for the fights ahead." Lisa looked up at him with fierce eyes. "You think there will be fights ahead?" "Commander, I've been in the military for 15 years, Morrison said. "I've never seen anything that will unite humanity like this attack. They killed our people during a funeral. They murdered children and families who came to honor a hero. There will definitely be fights ahead." On Earth, President Torres addressed the United Earth Assembly and all colonial governments in an emergency session. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from 50 human worlds. Every major news network carried the broadcast live to over 30 billion people. Torres stepped up to the podium and looked directly into the cameras. Her voice was calm and clear, but everyone could hear the steel underneath. "Yesterday, aliens attacked Terra Nova during the funeral of Admiral Marcus Kane," she began. "They did not send warnings. They did not make demands. They simply appeared and began killing innocent people who had gathered to honor a good man's memory." The hall was completely silent. Everyone had seen the footage by now. They killed 8,000 human beings in 10 minutes. Mothers holding their children, doctors trying to help the wounded, teachers who had brought their students to learn about service and sacrifice. They destroyed hospitals and schools and shelters full of civilians. Torres paused and let the weight of those words sink in. "I have consulted with military commanders, planetary governors, and colonial representatives. The message from every human world is the same. This attack was not just against Terra Nova. It was an attack against all of humanity. And humanity will respond." She looked directly into the main camera. "To whoever planned this attack, I want you to understand something very important about human beings. We are peaceful by choice, not weakness. We explore the galaxy to build homes for our families, not to conquer others. But when you murder our children during our most sacred ceremonies, you have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Torres stepped closer to the podium. There will be no negotiations, there will be no compromise, there will be no mercy. You wanted to break our spirit by attacking us in our moment of grief. Instead, you have awakened something you cannot comprehend. We are coming for you. The broadcast ended, but Torres remained at the podium for several more minutes. Representatives from across human space rose to their feet in solemn applause, not celebrating, but acknowledging that a line had been crossed and there was no going back. Within hours, every human shipyard received new construction orders. Civilian transport companies volunteered their vessels for military conversion. Mining companies offered to provide raw materials at cost. Even children began collecting metal scraps for the war effort. Admiral Cross worked around the clock to coordinate the mobilization. Supply lines that had been built to support peaceful colonization were rapidly converted to support military operations. Weapons factories that had been shut down after the last conflict were reopened and expanded. On Terra Nova, Lisa Blake received a personal message from President Torres appointing her as the new colonial governor and military coordinator for the Outer Rim. The message was brief but meaningful. Your father taught us that good people must be willing to fight for what they believe in. Now it's your turn to lead. Lisa stood in the ruins of the memorial site where her father was supposed to have been, laid to rest. The Zephyrians had turned a ceremony of love and remembrance into a scene of horror and death. They thought they could break humanity by attacking their most sacred rituals. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 months after Terra Nova, the human war machine had awakened completely. What the Zephyrians had dismissed as a scattered collection of peaceful colonists had transformed into something they never expected to face. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the USS Retribution, watching the largest fleet in human history assemble around him. 600 warships of various sizes filled the space around the staging area, with more arriving every day. Behind them, supply, ships and troop transport stretched out as far as sensors could reach. The speed of human mobilization had shocked even Cross himself. Civilian shipyards had worked day and night to convert cargo vessels into fighting ships. New weapons factories had been built in record time. Most importantly, volunteers had come from every human world to serve in what people were calling the Justice Fleet. Admiral, we're receiving final status reports from the task force commanders, his aide reported. Battle Group Alpha reports ready under Captain Morrison. Battle Group Beta is ready under Commander Rodriguez. All assault groups, report full readiness. Cross nodded as he studied the tactical display. Each group had a specific target in Zephyrian space. They had spent weeks gathering intelligence about enemy positions through captured communications and reconnaissance drones. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the USS Vengeance as part of the Advanced Strike Force. His ship had been upgraded with new weapons and armor, and his crew was eager for revenge. They had all seen the footage from Terra Nova, and everyone had personal reasons for being there. Captain, we're detecting Zephyrian patrol ships in the outer system, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim. 3 light cruisers holding position near the asteroid belt. Morrison smiled grimly. Signal the other ships in our group. We'll take these ones quietly before moving to the main target. The Zephyrians had no idea what was coming. Their intelligence suggested humans were primarily traders and explorers with limited military capability. They expected maybe a few dozen ships seeking revenge for Terra Nova. They were completely unprepared for the coordinated assault that was about to hit them. On the Zephyrian patrol ship Dominant Claw, Commander Thexrin was reviewing routine reports when his sensor officer suddenly called out in alarm, "Sir, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching at high speed. Configuration unknown, but they're definitely not civilian vessels." Thexrin moved to the tactical station and studied the readings. 12 ships were approaching in perfect formation, moving faster than any known human vessel. Their weapon signatures were completely different from previous human encounters. "Send an alert to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have an unknown human force in Sector 7. but the message never got sent. Morrison's task force opened fire at maximum range with new long-distance plasma cannons. The Zephyrian patrol ships were destroyed before they could react or call for help. The attack was so quick and efficient that other Zephyrian forces had no idea anything had happened. "Excellent work," Morrison told his crew. "Now we move to the main target. Remember, we're here for justice, not conquest. Military targets only, but show them no mercy." Similar attacks were happening throughout Zephyrian space. Admiral Cross had planned 17 simultaneous strikes against military installations, supply depots, and command centers. The Zephyrians found themselves under assault from multiple directions at once, with no time to coordinate their defenses. Commander Lisa Blake led the ground assault on Zephyrian Forward Base Gamma. Her Marines landed in heavily armored shuttles and immediately began their attack on the base's defensive positions. The Zephyrians fought back, but they were unprepared for human ground combat tactics. "Move fast and hit hard," Blake ordered her troops over the communication system. "These aliens killed families and children at my father's funeral. They don't deserve mercy, and they won't get any from us." The human Marines attacked with a fury that shocked their enemies. They used advanced weapons and tactics, but more importantly, they fought with an emotional intensity that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Every human soldier had personal reasons for being there. Sergeant Danny Cooper led his squad through the base's main complex, clearing rooms with ruthless efficiency. When they encountered Zephyrian soldiers, the fighting was brief and decisive. The aliens were skilled warriors, but they were not prepared for humans who fought like they had nothing to lose. "Sarge, we've secured the command center," reported Corporal Maria Santos. "Found their communication logs and tactical data. Looks like they have detailed information about our colonies." Cooper studied the alien computer displays with growing anger. The Zephyrians had been planning attacks on human settlements for months. Terra Nova was just the beginning of what they intended to be a campaign of extermination. "Send this intelligence back to headquarters immediately," he ordered. "Admiral Blake needs to see what these creatures were really planning." Back in space, the battle was going better than anyone had expected. Human ships were faster, better armed, and more maneuverable than Zephyrian vessels. The aliens had superior armor and shields, but human tactics and determination were overcoming their technological advantages. Captain Rodriguez commanded Battle Group Beta in an assault on a major Zephyrian supply depot. Her 12 ships swept through the facility's defenses like a storm, destroying cargo vessels and orbital platforms with precise fire. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender signals from the depot commander," her communications officer reported. Rodriguez looked at the tactical display showing the burning remains of Zephyrian ships. "Tell them surrender is not an option. They had their chance for mercy before they attacked mourning families." The depot was completely destroyed within an hour. Human forces took detailed scans of everything they found, gathering intelligence about Zephyrian military capabilities and supply lines, but they left no structures intact and took no prisoners. News of the human offensive spread quickly through Zephyrian space. Supreme Commander Vextar received reports of attacks on 17 different installations in a single day. His intelligence officers had no explanation for how humans had assembled such a large and capable force so quickly. "This is impossible," he told his staff. "Our analysis said humans had limited military capacity. These ships are using weapons and tactics we've never seen before." His tactical advisor studied the battle reports carefully. "Sir, it appears they converted civilian vessels into warships using rapid construction techniques. They've also developed new weapons specifically designed to counter our defensive systems." Vextar felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. The Terra Nova attack was supposed to break human expansion by eliminating their leadership and morale. Instead, it seemed to have united them in a way the Zephyrians had never anticipated. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. "Current estimates suggest over 600 combat vessels, with more being produced every day. Sir, they've turned their entire civilization into a war machine in just 3 months." Admiral Cross coordinated the offensive from his command ship, watching as reports of successful attacks came in from all battle groups. Every human target had been achieved with minimal casualties. The Zephyrian Empire was being systematically dismantled piece by piece. But Cross knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had made a fundamental mistake about human nature. They thought attacking during a funeral would break human spirit, but instead it had awakened something much more dangerous. "Signal all task force commanders," he ordered. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2 operations immediately. Target all Zephyrian military installations in the Outer Rim sectors. Commander Blake stood in the ruins of Forward Base Gamma, watching her Marines load captured intelligence data onto their transport ships. The base had been completely destroyed, but the information they had found would help identify more targets. She opened a communication channel to all human forces in the area. "This is Commander Blake to all units. Today we began to show these aliens what happens when you attack humanity during our most sacred ceremonies. But this is just the start. We will find every Zephyrian military installation, every command post, every supply depot, and we will reduce them all to ash." Her voice carried across the communication networks to thousands of human soldiers and sailors. "They wanted to break our spirit by murdering our families and children. Instead, they have learned that there is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than humans seeking justice for their fallen." The message was heard not just by human forces, but by Zephyrian intelligence as well. For the first time, Supreme Commander Vextar began to understand the true scope of his mistake. The Terra Nova attack had not eliminated human leadership. It had created new leaders forged in the fire of righteous anger. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn what happened when you attacked humanity during a funeral. 6 months after Terra Nova, the Zephyrian Empire was collapsing. What had once been a mighty civilization spanning 40 star systems was now reduced to desperate defensive actions as human forces advanced deeper into their territory. Admiral Cross stood in his war room aboard the USS Retribution, studying holographic displays that showed the current state of the conflict. Red marks indicated destroyed Zephyrian installations. Blue markers showed human advance positions. The map told a clear story. The aliens were losing badly. "Admiral, we've received confirmation from all battle groups," reported his intelligence, Chief Commander Robert Hayes. "Operation Burning Sky is complete. Every major Zephyrian military base in the Outer Rim has been destroyed." Cross nodded with satisfaction. Operation Burning Sky had been the largest human military action in history. Over 1,000 ships had participated in coordinated strikes across 12 star systems. The results had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. "What about civilian casualties?" Cross asked. Despite his anger over Terra Nova, he was determined to keep human forces focused on military targets. "Minimal, sir. Our commanders followed the Terra Nova protocols exactly. Military installations destroyed, civilian populations given time to evacuate. We're fighting a war, not committing genocide." That was the difference between humans and Zephyrians, Cross thought. The aliens had deliberately targeted families and children during a funeral ceremony. Humans were destroying their enemies while still maintaining their moral principles. Captain Morrison's task force was approaching the Kepler Prime system, site of a major Zephyrian naval base. His ship, the USS Vengeance, had participated in over 20 successful attacks and was becoming famous throughout human space. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting heavy Zephyrian fleet concentration around Kepler Prime," reported Lieutenant Kim. "At least 60 ships, including several battle cruisers." Morrison studied the tactical display. The Zephyrians had finally learned to mass their forces instead of spreading them thin across multiple systems. Unfortunately for them, it was too late. "Signal Battle Group Charlie. We'll coordinate our attack with theirs. 300 human ships against 60 alien vessels. I like those odds." The Battle of Kepler Prime lasted 8 hours and became a textbook example of human military superiority. The Zephyrians fought bravely, but their ships were designed for the kind of warfare they had always known: slow, methodical battles between evenly matched fleets. Human vessels fought differently. They moved in fast attack formations, using their superior speed and maneuverability to strike at weak points in Zephyrian formations. More importantly, human commanders were willing to take risks that the cautious alien leaders would never consider. "All ships, this is Morrison. Execute attack pattern Delta. Hit their command ship first, then work outward from the center. The human fleet swept through the Zephyrian formation like a blade. Morrison's ship led the charge, her plasma cannons tearing holes in alien shields. Behind him, dozens of other human vessels followed, each captain eager to strike a blow for Terra Nova. Supreme Admiral Kethros commanded the Zephyrian defense fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He watched in growing horror as human ships destroyed his vessels one by one. Their tactics were unlike anything in Zephyrian military doctrine. "Sir, they're ignoring our heavy ships and targeting our support vessels first," his tactical officer reported. "They're trying to isolate our battle cruisers." Kethros understood the strategy, but knowing about it and stopping it were two different things. Human ships were simply too fast and aggressive. They struck like lightning, destroyed their targets, and moved on before his forces could respond effectively. "Send a message to Supreme Command," he ordered. "Tell them the humans are not the weak explorers we thought they were. These are warriors, and they fight like demons." The message would never reach its destination. Captain Morrison's squadron targeted the Eternal Victory's communication array first, cutting off the Zephyrian commander from his superiors. Then, they systematically destroyed every other ship in the formation. Kethros found himself alone on the bridge of his damaged flagship, surrounded by the burning wreckage of his fleet. Through the main viewer, he could see human ships moving in perfect formation, their weapons trained on his vessel. A communication signal came from the lead human ship. Morrison's voice was cold and professional. "Zephyrian Commander, this is Captain Morrison of the United Earth Fleet. You are defeated. Prepare to be boarded for prisoner interrogation. I request terms of surrender under galactic military law," Kethros replied, hoping the humans would show mercy. "You lost the right to terms of surrender when you attacked families during a funeral," Morrison answered. "You will be taken prisoner for intelligence purposes only. Your ship and crew are forfeit." Commander Lisa Blake's ground forces had captured 3 major Zephyrian command centers in the past month. Each victory provided valuable intelligence about enemy operations and revealed more details about their original attack plan. Blake stood in the interrogation room aboard her command ship, looking down at Supreme Admiral Kethros. The alien was wounded but conscious, his purple skin pale from blood loss and fear. "Admiral, we've analyzed the data from your ship's computers," she said calmly. "It seems you were part of the original planning for the Terra Nova attack." Kethros remained silent, but his eyes showed that he understood exactly what she was talking about. "You helped plan the murder of 8,000 innocent people attending a funeral," Blake continued. "Families with children, doctors and teachers, people who had never held a weapon in their lives." She leaned forward, her voice becoming harder. "I want you to understand something very important. My father was the man being buried that day. Admiral Marcus Kane, the human who spent 30 years protecting colonies from pirates and hostile aliens. He was a good man who died peacefully in his sleep." Blake activated a holographic display showing footage from the Terra Nova attack. Kethros watched as Zephyrian ships appeared above the memorial ceremony and began firing into the crowd. "You turned his funeral into a massacre. You dishonored his memory and murdered thousands of innocent people. And for what? To send a message about Zephyrian power?" The alien admiral finally spoke. "We thought eliminating your leadership would end human expansion in our territory." Blake almost smiled at the irony. "Instead, you created more leaders than we ever had before. Every human who survived that attack, every person who lost family or friends, every child who saw those images, they all became leaders in their own way." She stood up and moved to the viewport, looking out at the human fleet assembling for the next phase of operations. "We've destroyed over 200 of your military installations. We've captured or eliminated most of your naval forces. Your empire is finished, Admiral, and it all happened because you made one simple mistake." "What mistake?" Kethros asked quietly. "You attacked us during a funeral. You violated the most sacred human ritual, the ceremony where we honor our dead and remember their sacrifices. You thought it would break our spirit." Blake turned back to face the defeated alien commander. "Instead, you awakened something in humanity that you can never put back to sleep. Every human in the galaxy now understands that there are forces out. They're willing to murder families and children to achieve their goals. They understand that peaceful exploration is not enough. We must also be prepared to fight. Admiral Cross received regular intelligence reports from Blake's interrogation of captured Zephyrian officers. The information revealed the full scope of alien planning against human colonies. Terra Nova had been just the first step in what was supposed to be a campaign of extermination. "Sir, we've identified the locations of every remaining Zephyrian military installation," Commander Hayes reported. "There are also coordinates for their home system and the location of their supreme military command." Cross studied the data carefully. The Zephyrians had planned to destroy dozens of human colonies, killing millions of innocent people. Only the fierce human response had prevented a genocide. "Prepare Operation Final Justice," he ordered. "We're going to end this war by striking at the heart of their empire." Throughout human space, the news of continued victories spread like wildfire. On Earth, President Torres announced that human forces had successfully destroyed or captured over 300 alien military installations with minimal casualties. But she also reminded the public why they were fighting. "We did not start this war," she said in her weekly address to the nation. "We were attacked during a funeral while honoring one of our greatest heroes. They murdered families and children who had come to pay their respects to a good man. They thought they could break our spirit with terror and violence." Torres looked directly into the camera. "They were wrong. They awakened something in humanity that they cannot comprehend. We are not conquerors or destroyers. We are protectors. And when someone threatens our families, attacks our children, violates our most sacred ceremonies, we become the most dangerous force in the galaxy." The message was broadcast not just to humans but to every intelligent species in known space. The galaxy was learning that there were consequences for attacking humanity during their moments of grief and remembrance. 1 year after Terra Nova, the human fleet approached Zephyros Prime, homeworld of the Zephyrian Empire. Over 1,500 ships moved in perfect formation through the outer system, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Cross stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching the alien homeworld grow larger on the main screen. This was the moment everything had been building toward since that terrible day, when families gathering to honor a hero were murdered from the sky. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple surrender offers from the planetary government," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Colonel Sandra West. "They're asking for terms under galactic military law." Cross looked at the tactical display showing Zephyros Prime and its orbital defenses. The planet was heavily fortified with defense platforms, shield generators, and whatever remained of the Zephyrian fleet. But compared to the human armada, their forces looked small and desperate. "Open a channel to all human ships," Cross ordered. "I want every captain to hear this." When the communication network was active, Cross spoke with the authority of someone who had spent months hunting down the aliens responsible for the Terra Nova massacre. "This is Admiral Cross to all ships. We are here because the Zephyrians chose to attack Terra Nova during Admiral Kane's funeral. They murdered 8,000 innocent people, including children, while we honored our dead. Today we finish what they started." He paused, looking at the image of the alien homeworld. "However, we are not here to commit genocide. We are here for justice. Military targets only. Give the civilians time to evacuate before you fire. We will destroy their capacity to wage war, but we will not become the monsters they proved themselves to be." Captain Morrison commanded the lead assault group aboard the USS Vengeance. His ship had been upgraded again with the most advanced weapons humanity could build. Around him, 200 other vessels prepared for the final battle. "Captain, we're detecting approximately 80 alien warships in defensive positions around the planet," reported Lieutenant Kim. "They've positioned themselves between us and the orbital platforms." Morrison studied the enemy formation. The Zephyrians were making their last stand with whatever ships they had left. He could respect their courage even while hating what they had done. "All ships in Battle Group Alpha. This is Morrison. Remember Terra Nova. Remember the families and children they killed. Show them what happens when you attack humanity during a funeral." The Battle of Zephyros Prime began at exactly 1400 hours. Earth Standard Time. Human ships advanced in waves, their weapons systems fully charged and ready. The Zephyrians fought back with desperate courage, knowing they were facing the end of their empire. The first exchange of fire lit up space between the two fleets. Human plasma cannons and missile systems poured destruction into the alien formation, while Zephyrian energy beams tried to cut through human shields and armor. But the outcome was never really in doubt. Human technology had advanced rapidly during the war, driven by anger and determination. Human tactics had been perfected through months of successful battles. Most importantly, human crews fought with an emotional intensity that their enemies could not match. Supreme Commander Vexitar watched the battle from his command bunker, deep beneath the planetary surface. Reports poured in of ship after ship being destroyed by human forces. His officers looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? His empire was finished. "Sir, should we activate the planetary defense systems?" asked his tactical advisor. Vexitar looked at the tactical display showing human ships systematically destroying the orbital defense platforms. They were being careful to avoid hitting civilian areas on the planet's surface, which surprised him. After everything that had happened, he had expected them to simply destroy everything. "No," he said quietly. "It would only delay the inevitable, and it would give them an excuse to target civilian areas." The final Zephyrian warship was destroyed after 18 hours of continuous fighting. The USS Vengeance, leading a squadron of human destroyers, fired the shots that eliminated the last alien resistance in orbit around their homeworld. Morrison looked down at Zephyros Prime from his bridge. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of Earth. It was home to billions of innocent civilians who had no part in planning the Terra Nova attack. "Signal Admiral Cross," he ordered. "Orbital space is secure. All enemy military forces have been eliminated." Commander Blake led the ground assault on the planetary command center. Her Marines landed in the capital city and advanced through streets filled with frightened alien civilians. The Zephyrians made no attempt to resist. Their military forces were gone, and their government had already fled. Blake entered the command bunker and found Supreme Commander Vexitar sitting alone in his office. The alien leader looked older and more tired than she had expected. He was not the monster she had imagined, just a person who had made terrible choices. "Supreme Commander Vexitar," she said formally, "I am Commander Lisa Blake, daughter of Admiral Marcus Kane. You are under arrest for war crimes related to the attack on Terra Nova." Vexitar stood slowly and faced her. "I know who you are, Commander. I have been expecting you." "Do you understand what you did when you attacked during my father's funeral?" Blake asked. "I understand that I made the worst mistake in my species' history," Vexitar replied. "We thought humans were weak because you valued peace and exploration over conquest. We thought attacking your emotional ceremonies would break your will to fight." He looked out the window at human ships filling the sky above his homeworld. "We were wrong about everything. We awakened something in humanity that we should have left sleeping." Admiral Cross arrived on the planet's surface 6 hours later. He wanted to personally oversee the final phase of the operation, the complete demilitarization of Zephyrian space. In the ruins of the Zephyrian Command Center, he met with surviving alien leaders to dictate terms. There would be no negotiation. The Zephyrians would accept human conditions or face complete destruction. "The Zephyrian Empire is hereby dissolved," Cross announced. "All military forces will be disbanded. All weapons manufacturing will cease. All warships will be destroyed or surrendered to human forces." The alien representatives listened in defeated silence. "Your species will be permitted to survive, but you will never again pose a threat to anyone. Human observers will be stationed on every Zephyrian world to ensure compliance with these terms." One of the alien delegates, an elderly female named Thara, spoke up hesitantly. "What about our colonies? Our civilian population?" Cross looked at her with something that might have been compassion. "Your colonies will be protected and allowed to continue functioning under human supervision. We are not interested in ruling over your people or taking your worlds. We just want to make sure you never again attack innocent families during their sacred ceremonies." Commander Blake stood in what had been the Zephyrian Imperial Palace. The building was mostly intact, though human forces had systematically destroyed all the military equipment and communication systems. She activated a portable holographic projector and recorded a message that would be broadcast throughout the galaxy. "This is Commander Blake of the United Earth Fleet, speaking from the former capital of the Zephyrian Empire. 1 year ago, these aliens attacked Terra Nova during my father's funeral. They murdered 8,000 innocent people, including children, and families who had come to honor a hero." She gestured to the destroyed military equipment around her. "Today, their empire is finished. Their military forces have been eliminated. Their capacity to wage war has been permanently removed. They will be allowed to survive as a species, but they will never again threaten peaceful civilizations." Blake looked directly into the recorder. "Let this be a lesson to anyone in the galaxy who might consider attacking humanity. We are explorers and builders by choice, not weakness. We seek peace and friendship with all intelligent species. But if you murder our families, if you attack us during our sacred ceremonies, if you threaten our children, you will face the full wrath of a united humanity." She paused, thinking of her father and all the other victims of the Terra Nova massacre. "We honor our dead by protecting our living. We remember our fallen by ensuring that such tragedies never happen again. The galaxy is now a safer place for all peaceful civilizations." The broadcast ended, but the message spread rapidly throughout known space. Every intelligent species received the same warning. Humanity was peaceful by choice, but when threatened, they became the most dangerous force in the galaxy. 5 years later, a new memorial was built on Terra Nova. Admiral Kane's grave was surrounded by markers for every human who had died in the massacre, but it also served as a warning to the galaxy. The memorial inscription, written in dozens of galactic languages, read simply, "Here lies Admiral Marcus Kane and 8,000 innocent people, murdered during a funeral by those who thought attacking our sacred ceremonies would break our spirit. Their deaths were avenged. Let the galaxy remember." Commander Blake, now Admiral Blake, commanded the Terran Defense Force from her flagship, USS Justice. The ship's mission was to ensure that no other species would make the same mistake the Zephyrians had made.